Hey everybody, how's it going? I'm Marco Iacono. I'm a VP Product at Viv Labs. I just wanted to first thank everybody for coming to SDC this year. You've probably heard this from pretty much everybody at Samsung and Viv yesterday and today, but I'm super, super excited to finally get Bixby Developer Studio in your hands. And I think we're all really, really happy to see what creative energy comes out and what you guys all build. So looking forward to the next few months and towards the marketplace launch as well. Something Dag mentioned during the keynote yesterday was that this virtual assistant space is still nascent. And I think that's true. But in the last few years, I think everyone that's been involved has learned a lot. So we've learned a lot about what works, what doesn't work, what it takes to get in the game, things like that. And we've got a really great panel here today. People from companies that have been making huge investments in this technology over the last couple of years and have a lot of great insights to share. So I think we'll let everybody introduce themselves and then dive right in and learn what it takes to actually be successful in this game. So maybe hand it off to Noelia first.
Yeah, sure. You guys hear me well? Yeah? Well, Noelia here. I am product owner of all the voice experiences at Ticketmaster.
I am Lawrence Kennedy at Spotify, working on the team that does a lot of our partnerships and integrations of Spotify into speakers, cars, other software services, Instagram, kind of you name it, wherever you see Spotify.
Cool. My name's Chad Richard. I'm with Yelp. I lead our business development, so partnerships and M&A activity.
Thanks, Chad. So I think one of the first things I'm interested in just hearing about is if you guys could tell us a little bit about how you connect with these products in your personal life. So do you use these kind of products? How long have you been using them, and how's it affected your life over the past few years? So just maybe Chad.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm a big fan, as you know, Marco, of voice assistants. I think for me, it's this really exciting new computing paradigm that's just started to pop up over the last 5 years or so of new ways to basically interact with cool services no matter where you are, no matter what you're doing. So for me, some instances that really hit home are when I'm in the car. Super easy way to kind of get things done in a safe manner. And I also think it's really interesting sort of from an ambient computing standpoint when you're in the home and you're doing things in your home. You're not necessarily seated at your computer or geeking out on your phone, but you have something you want to achieve. And one of the big surprises for me has been watching my children and how they want to interact with these kind of voice assistants, virtual assistants. And I have a 7-year-old son, a 9-year-old daughter, and it's really cool to me because they use these assistants the way I would have used a newspaper back in, say, the early 80s when I was their age. And so if they want to know what the score was of the game last night, or if they want to know what the weather's going to be like today so that they know what to wear when they're dressing for school, or if they just want to know what time it is, they're not going to go look at a clock. They're going to actually talk to an assistant. And it's just second nature for them. And so for me, it was like this cool thing coming to it after computers, into mobile phones, into this new era. And for them, they were just sort of born into it. And it's just second nature, which has really been cool to see.
Yeah, it's crazy to think about that this is a generation of kids who haven't known the world without this.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, so similar to you with the kids thing, I think that's like a big part of this is seeing, they had this tablet moment where kids could pick up tablets and use them, and adults would be like, how do they know how to use this? And similar here, like, kids can just speak and say, like, play my favorite music. And I didn't even know my kids, like, had favorite music until I heard them talking to a speaker. So as a music fan and a fan of, like, podcasts, I've kind of adopted the voice speakers really quickly and have them kind of everywhere throughout my home. I've been a bit more reluctant on the smart things stuff, although I did just buy a voice-controlled ceiling fan, so I guess I'm now like fully an early adopter and into it. Yeah, that's a bit about my background.
Yeah, talking about children's, I actually have the opposite example that I had to, one time my mom was visiting me in LA, where I live, and then I had to teach her how to use a voice speaker, voice-enabled smart speaker. So, because her phone stopped working, so she had to communicate with me during the day. So I had to set up all the, my contacts and everything, and she just have to invoke the virtual assistant name and say, call Noelia. And after, like a 5 minutes, funny moments, like all the things that you can see in YouTube, all people interacting with voice enables, it was very funny. But at the end of the day, she was able to call me, and then after that, when I was in the office, she was calling me, and we were like talking, and we have some activities to coordinate with. So it was fascinating to see how even people who are not naturally occupied with that chip, they can also jump into these new type of devices. And actually, it was very helpful that day for her to communicate with me through a smartphone. Oh, I'm sorry, a smart speaker.
That's awesome. I guess kind of just getting into it a little bit deeper now. So each of you guys works at companies that have been really successful, either starting on the web or in mobile. And I think for Ticketmaster, I remember going into the mall when I was in high school and buying tickets at a counter. So I'm just kind of curious to get your perspectives on kind of, with this new paradigm, what's the same, what's different about your business, like how you're approaching coming into this paradigm? Just want to try to understand that a little bit better.
Yeah, sure. Yes. Years ago, we started with paper tickets, selling in kiosks and in malls. Then the internet came, and we embraced the internet. And then very recently, we jumped into the mobile ticketing. So I believe that we have been jumping into new screens and new experiences because we want to meet where our fans are. And it's actually part of our mission. Like my team, specifically distributed commerce, our mission is to be where they are, where our fans are. And voice experiences is no exception. So the good thing is that we were there, and we are now there experimenting with these new devices, and we are learning with our fans, because also we know, and we very humble say all the time, we are learning with them while they are learning also how to use those devices. And I think that the key part for us is test and learn. And maybe a cliche, but it's really happening with us. We are testing, we are trying to learn fast, and we are learning what they want, what our fans want from these devices, and accommodate or link into these needs. That they could be transactional, they could be customer service, they could be just live events discovery. So, and we know that we have to respond to those needs very fast also.
Yeah, I can go next. So Spotify started in 2008, and it was really a search box for music. And so I guess having to transition from that to being on phones when people are on the go, I had to get a lot better, surfacing content for you to get to it quickly. I think we've always had this vision, though, that you could just say play music or play me something, not even music, and that it would just play exactly what the user wanted or what the person wanted. And I think we, before smart speakers were invented, we had this vision of like, okay, you open up your mobile app and then it will play it. And now you can remove even that step of having to take out your phone and look at the mobile app. So I think transitioning to smart speakers is a really natural fit for an audio-first company like Spotify. So we've really embraced it and been preparing ahead of time. It's taken some investments now in machine learning to really meet this expectation people have about us just knowing what we should play when someone asks to play something. So it's going to be interesting to see as we get better at that and as smart assistants get better and people get more used to interacting, if we can really achieve that over time.
Cool. So I think for Yelp, Yelp launched in 2004 and was, a website at the time, obviously, and was super useful and helpful and had pretty good early success. But of course, with the birth of smartphones, when people are on the go, local search ends up being hyper relevant when you're cruising around with your smartphone and you're looking for stuff. So Yelp really took off after, the advent of smartphones. One of the things that comes to mind about this question is when you're building a website for your company or service, you're building an app, you're fully in control of your own experience, and it's usually your own branded experience, and it's all about you and your relationship with the people who are using your service. In the virtual assistant world, it's a little bit different, though, because the assistants sort of play this role more like an operating system.
Right.
And you're fitting in there, and you don't know necessarily the context as that developer. You don't know the context that led up to the questions before necessarily, and you're also just feeding things into the assistant. So it's a different level of control of the experience, basically. And the users are looking for something very specific in this case. So as a local search company, if you go to Yelp.com or launch the Yelp app and you type in Chinese restaurants, you expect, a list that's sorted by the top quality stuff based on what's closest to you. Super helpful in a search paradigm, and you'll sort through stuff and look at photos. But when you're talking to an assistant and you want to find great Chinese food nearby, you're looking for one answer, basically.
Right. Yeah.
Luckily for Yelp, it's super great because everybody tends to know where all the Chinese restaurants are, but Yelp is arguably the best source for the highest quality. So we can use all that data that we have on these businesses to find that one single answer, or maybe less than 3 choices for you. So it's just a very different sort of user interaction paradigm, as well as an operating environment that you're playing in.
Yeah, I think that's something we're really trying to encourage on the Bixby platform too. Rather than giving back a laundry list of results, really act like an assistant, right? Give the user a few great examples of something that might be helpful.
Yeah.
But I'm curious.
Fire an assistant who gave you 30 options.
Yeah, exactly, right? Exactly. How about you guys? Have you seen your customers behaving differently on these voice products than in your core experiences on mobile? Like, how's it affecting customer usage?
Yeah, I'd say it's interesting because we see more people that stay the intent to just play something. That happens much more often because you can't really do that with a mobile app. So we see that we have to get really good at and are arguably really good at already. And also pretty specific queries now and very complex ones come through. And so they're not as often, I guess you'd say, but if you get that wrong, then it can be quite negative to the user, especially if it's their first time using the assistant and they say, play me X, Y, Z. So I guess that's where we've had to improve, and I think we've done a lot to get there, so now we're in really good shape.
Is it people trying to stump it, or is it just really complex requests?
I just think that with voice, you have so much more ability to say different things. When you're typing, you keep it brief and short, and so we got really good at doing those, and now ahead of the voice explosion, we've had to gotten really good at, as I said, with the machine learning, being able to kind of parse out complex queries. And now Bixby Voice, the SDK platform, gives us a lot of the tools to be able to do that more efficiently and also have our brand identity come through as well, too.
Cool.
Yeah, echoing actually that, we found that, and this is kind of a trend that we found also in some stats out there, but for instance, when people is searching in a bar or actually texting in a text, the most of the search are between 1 to 3 words. Like they will go to Ticketmaster.com and will say Taylor Swift, Beyonce, and that's it. This is the search. However, what we see in smart speakers or in the apps that we are already there live is that most of the searches are between 3 to 5 words. And they are longer and they are non-structured. It's like, tell me about Taylor Swift tour dates. Okay, so we have to grab those, put in an intent, and recognize that they are talking about Taylor Swift and probably tour dates is at US. So we found naturally more non-structured searches that have more words, that we have to clean up the noise and recognize that this is what they want. Also, it's pretty fascinating, and we start to see a little bit in Ticketmaster when we analyze cross platforms, is that actually voice search is influencing searches in other sites. Like, for instance, in a brief talk with our CEO lead, she was telling me, hey, you guys already launched any AI smartphone? We were like, yeah, we are in some apps and everything. I was explaining her. And then she told me, because we had on a spike saying, hey, Google, hey, Bixby, or Alexa, in the keywords just to find Taylor Swift tickets. So that's just one example how voice search is also influencing other devices, and in some cases, reducing the search. Like, we have other stats out there from NPR saying that people is reducing the searches in radio, or actually listen radio, and then they are going to the smart speaker and then being the source of music. So, which is one of the most common uses of a speaker. So that fascinates me too, how that voice can influence other behaviors in other devices.
Wow, and I think, so you talk about how the consumer behavior changes even in your website or mobile app, but I think it sounds like, and I'm sure, just even your core approach to how you're going to fulfill requests, how you're going to build this experience, probably a lot of challenges there. Maybe there's folks out in the audience. I don't know, how many of you out there have actually already been working on some kind of assistant implementation on either Bixby or another product? Okay, so pretty familiar. Seems like maybe 50-50. So one thing I think that could be interesting is talk a little bit about what kinds of challenges did you all encounter as you started working on these things? Right, I know, Chad, you started working on these things a long, long time ago at a different company. But what challenges did you guys see as you started building for this paradigm?
Yeah, so one of the interesting things is how important structured data is in this environment, right? Because as people, it's riffing off of kind of what you were both saying. I think it's interesting that consumers feel really comfortable about asking a voice assistant specific questions that are quite detailed, right? Where in Yelp, you can use these crazy filters to do the same thing, but no mere mortal knows how to do that, right? And so you will say something like, hey, Bixby, go ahead and make me a reservation at a sushi place within 2 miles of here tonight at 8 o'clock. But if you tried to do that in the Yelp search field, it would feel very awkward, actually, right? And so the reason that Bixby can get there so quickly is because of the structured data. And so I think a lot of people, step one is just making sure you understand your data, you have it structured in ways that it's easily accessible, and then start to understand how those different data attributes are going to play as it relates to the way people normally speak, right? And then mapping those to just speech behavior. And you run into all sorts of challenges with synonyms, for instance, right? Because we all speak in different ways, but oftentimes mean the same thing. There's a lot of ways to ask for the same, what I just asked for. So if you don't have strong handle around sort of your data and the structures for it, and if you don't have enough data, that can be challenging too. So oftentimes you have to augment your data with other data sets to achieve the right scenario that people are going to look for.
Yeah, I would second the data point. I think that's really where we, you just have to make sure you have great data, and that will help support your voice assistant being even better and more capable. And I'd say one other challenge we've seen, aside from kind of the data and complex queries, is really just been about delivering the brand value and differentiation when you don't have an app icon or visual way of kind of representing different content. So we've been working hard with the voice assistant providers, and happy to say that Bixby Voices gives you that flexibility to be able to really handle the queries how you want to handle them, and not kind of have as you said, the operating system parse out things for you, then losing that context. So that's getting as much context from the platform is something that's really important as you move forward too.
Yeah, we have that challenge too. Other challenge that we have to face, at least in the last year or so, that we have developed all these for different smart speakers and voice assistants in smartphones, is to scale features and actually to scale in different platforms. So we want to scale, we want to release features as much scalable as possible. But we know that we are dealing with different platforms. Bixby is one of them, Google, Alexa, you name it, all these voice assistants out there. And from a company perspective, what we want is we are a user-centric company, and we want as much as possible the seamless experience within those platforms. But different platforms mean different capabilities and also different interactions. So how we accommodate that, and we ended customizing some code for each specific platform to give a similar experience. And it's the same thing in a more granular level when we have to decide in a feature, like for instance, it's very hot here talking about contextual search, right? How we translate that contextual search on a voice only platform will be different than extrapolating that exactly feature on a Facebook Messenger, which is just text, just to give you two examples. So that has been our challenge. It's kind of, for us, it's kind of like the Wild West yet.
Right.
Trying to develop and scale at the same time with minimum effort, try to be efficient, but also delivering a user experience that the users don't feel like they have a different ticket master out there. So that is that the two combining forces plus the user interaction is totally different. So lesson learned again has been one of the challenges.
Yeah, I mean, you guys all mentioned data and scaling in certain ways. I'm also interested, what about just API infrastructure? And something that I've noticed when I go and talk to partners is a lot of the times there are some major changes that need to happen in the API layer to actually be able to do these integrations. Did you guys face any challenges in that regard at all?
Well, for Ticketmaster, we already have a set of APIs that we already have already ready to work. Probably more when we expand internationally to keep that parity. That's something that is not a challenge, but it's something that every time that we release an endpoint, we have to know that, okay, this is for North America, but then what about for Australia, New Zealand, just to mention all the English-speaking countries, even though they have English available, and for us, we just need a minimal localization in terms of language, to have just that endpoint available. Feature parity with US, it's something that we have to come back to the drawing board and think about those kind of localizations even before releasing an endpoint or inventory or seat maps. So, and partners like you guys are expecting that from us. So it's something that we all the time thinking how we deliver those in a feature parity and more seamless. To deliver a more seamless user experience.
I think what's interesting is I think both on your platform and the Yelp platform, you guys do have APIs in place to allow experiences to go all the way through from search through to like doing a booking, buying tickets, reserving a table. That's one thing I think we've noticed is that a lot of APIs that were built maybe between 5-8 years ago, they were really set up for affiliate programs, right? So what we find is we go out there and we see there's APIs in place to do search, maybe even really structured search, but then there's nothing in terms of completing a transaction. So that requires like maybe 6 to 8 months of effort, and that's where we've seen kind of companies say, oh, we've got to do that, and then go back. So I think that's something that if you can get ahead of it, would be a huge advantage.
Yeah, my other mindset on that is, Yelp, we have the Yelp Fusion API, which is pretty robust because we work with a lot of different partners. And any work that we did need to do to kind of help meet the Bixby needs was either something we were already doing or should be doing.
Right.
Right? It's just, it's not out of, I think a lot of that desire to have transactions be able to be distributed, there's such a receptive ecosystem out there for those kind of things that modern APIs kind of should be doing that. And we were growing our reservations booking service over the last couple of years, so that was a little further behind in the API, but it was just such a no-brainer and on the roadmap anyway for us. So we were psyched to do it. And also to be able to launch it with a partner that can deliver it at scale like Bixby can, which is really cool.
Yeah. What about the team, right? So as you guys work on this, have you had to think about getting different types of team members? Like, how do you look for people to work on this kind of thing?
I can start with that one. I think, we have had to look more at, it's kind of interesting because in the mobile era, search was not as prominent because you could kind of serve up whatever you wanted to the user. So going back and making sure we have people that are really competent in doing search and complex queries is super important. And then, the transactional APIs is a big one because, you used to design all these flows for doing subscription processing, and now you want to consolidate it to, one-shot subscription, basically, which is stuff that you should do anyways. You shouldn't have a lengthy subscription flow in your website. So I think those sorts of things are exactly where you need to focus a bit more on.
Yeah, we are a small team in our case. However, we have we get support from other teams and within our team also. So it's really helpful for us to already have a technology in place that is, it's not a plugin, but we have all the APIs in order. So basically our learning curve has been in the technical side to learn about these new platforms, and we have a lead engineer working on NLP, machine learning exclusively. But the good thing is that Ticketmaster also have product marketing team that help us to, with all the copyrights and everything in terms of response. We have a machine learning team, data science team. We have a set of other engineers that help us with the partner integration. In the case of Bixby, we're working with them too. So we have infrastructure and resources that help us outside the voice experiences. But definitely what I see in other teams or other companies is that they form squads. That from your design, your copywriter, your engineer, and then your product manager. So it's kind of like more or less how is shaping voice experiences teams within the company too.
Yeah, I think interaction design is a really important one that people are obviously have to invest in. A different type of interaction designer that can do voice interaction. So that's a good one to think about if you're entering the space, to have a designer convert to voice interaction or find people that have that skill set.
Yeah, hard to find those people.
Exactly.
I think
people used to work on call systems,
Right.
Right, more similar. I think one task that some developers may face that's not necessarily as obvious, depending on the nature of their business, is actually thinking through the business logic of working through voice assistants. Because I think in a transactional standpoint where you're selling tickets, it's sort of a no-brainer. You're like, okay, we're going to sell so many tickets and this is what we do. For us, it's a little bit different at Yelp because we are more of a media and local search service ourselves. So you're actually taking a piece of your business, putting it out in other environments, and sort of working through the business logic of why you're giving things away, so to speak.
Right.
How that brand experience goes and maps back to your core business and service. So depending on what type of content you're bringing into a voice assistant, I think it's such an important realm that it would be rare that I would tell someone they shouldn't be playing with it now, but you do need to build business cases for it at the end of the day, and some are more obviously monetizable than others, right?
Sure.
And some of them are actually cannibalistic, arguably. So that's one thing that's been a little bit unique about the space for us.
And I guess kind of playing off that a little bit, just thinking about how you define success in voice experiences, right? I think in mobile, we're all used to, very, very common metrics, right, and funnels and things like that. How do you guys think about defining success for a voice integration now, where it's still kind of early days? Maybe adoption isn't where it is with mobile. And what do you hope to see coming down the road?
I'll run with that since I was just on that. So for us, it's really a brand extension. Like we love to be able to provide consumers with the best local business that they should be at. And if you're making that query to Bixby, we want to be there. Of course, in a branded way so that someone knows that it's coming from Yelp. And I think that ends up providing a lot of consumer value too, if you know what that 4 stars means or 5 stars or whatever the case may be. So for us, it's this kind of omnipresent brand sort of strategy on a certain level that provides more familiarity with the service and more engagement. And also one of my favorite aspects of Bixby is that transactional mindset that you guys really bring of like, let's actually get this done. Let's not just know about it, but let's literally get this done. So that transactional of being able to book something or potentially buy something, I think is really great. So right now, I would say in the near term, it's all about that brand presence and being top of mind for finding that best thing that's going to serve you. We love that we're already booking, reservations at restaurants, but doing more transactions over time I think will become a more important metric for us.
Yeah, so the business model, I think, for Spotify applies pretty easily to voice speakers, so we haven't had to kind of modify much in terms of success metrics there on the business side. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's all about usage, and are people actually using this experience and enjoying it? And we're finding, voice speakers, it does lead to longer sessions, so we really want to keep optimizing that and getting them into a session with as low friction as possible. So that's still the funnel that we kind of look at to see if we're successful or not.
Yeah, for us, definitely is ultimately engagement. Frequent our users use Ticketmaster through these new devices. But there are middle steps to get there, right? Because we are just starting in the top of the funnel. So one of the things that we are working right now, and that is very unique to these devices, is the conversational KPIs. Right, so if we are getting the right intent, if we are actually understanding of them. So we have some KPIs or metrics already standardized across platforms that tell us, okay, how many of these searches we didn't handle or didn't handle incorrectly, or actually we answered another thing that they wanted, or is through an error. So we keep those percentage over the total of searches. So that is our middle step right now to try to, that make also unique and different this type of platform than mobile or web.
Yeah, to add on to this, I think that's another really important thing for people that are entering this space is to get a really good set of test data that you test all the different experiences out against to be able to make sure you have a really high quality bar, and then also have the measurement in place to see what your failure rates are and things like that.
Yeah, super important. Just like task completion, failure, right? Yeah. I guess, one question that pops up a lot, and I think, Chad, you kind of alluded to a little bit, is just about brand. And, you've got a lot of different devices out there, some with screens where it's easy to show your brand, some without screens, much harder. So how do you think about differentiating your brand as more and more players come into the space? And how do you think about preventing commoditization in that regard?
I'll take the first shot at that one. I think it is a bit more difficult when you don't have a screen. I mean, I think maybe we'll get to this later, but the power of the Samsung ecosystem is that you can have a TV screen working alongside a voice speaker. So I think we're feeling like that will hopefully provide a bit more of this, like, well, it works seamlessly across these devices, and so you'll see the brand somewhere. But even without seeing the brand, I think just using it, we want the brand to come through in just delivering the best experience. So that's probably the biggest way, is if it works better than any other service, then that's your brand speaks for itself, I guess you could say. And then we're just always pushing to make sure these platforms are open so people have the power to choose which service they want to use and know which service they're using. So I think it's useful to make sure that they at least have some indicator of where the query is being handled from, and not just goes into a black box and they get results type thing.
Right.
Yeah, for us, one of the major things that if we have to go through the persona route, like what actually differentiates us. For us, it's as simple like if you wanna know about a live event out there or close to you, we just have to keep it simple. This is something that is part of our persona, keep it simple, and we are trying to test and learn and to what keep it simple mean in this type of platforms. The other piece that we are all the time working, and this is kind of a ongoing effort for us on this platform, is if you are expecting to get the live event at Ticketmaster.com, you should be able to get it also on those platforms. So it's a continuing effort to open more inventory and more options for you in a personalized way, which is the next step for us to make this personalization also a differentiator for our brand.
Yeah, I think it's a great question because as developers, you don't want your brand to be totally subsumed from the voice assistant, which again is acting more as the operating system in these environments. And I think the answer for most of us probably comes back to like, what's the core differentiator of your business or service in the first place? So for Yelp, it's very much that trusted source based on community reviews. So for us, it ends up being that rating of the business that we're recommending, and the fact that this has 4.5 stars on Yelp is actually a meaningful consumer sort of piece of information, and also carries our brand with it.
Yeah, cool. And I think we want to leave a couple minutes for questions at the end, so I'll just pose one last question to the panel. Just kind of wrapping everything up. If you were to give one piece of advice to a company that's just getting started, maybe it's something that you would wish you had done differently from the beginning, or just anything else, what would that one piece of advice be?
I think for me, I agree with Doug's statement of like it's super early in this ecosystem. So I think everyone needs to be playing there right now. So I wouldn't be shy, might be the advice. So you have to go in not necessarily knowing what to expect and not knowing what the outcome is. But as the ecosystem evolves, I think you'll be really happy you're along for the ride.
Yeah, mine's more age-old product advice, which is think of the users first, start small, and nail like one use case really well. That do some user testing and see what thing people really want from your service on this voice speaker, and then kind of iterate from there. So. Yeah,
I echo totally that. For us, I reduce it to iterate, and iterate. That is what. And it happened to us, what we think that how the users will originally use this feature or the other probably will end up being another one. And the only thing that we have to emphasize is go fast, iterate, test, do it again. So this is how we are learning. And we have found already some hidden treasures out there just for the voice user experience perspective, just iterating and learning with the user.
Great, thanks. So I guess we have a few minutes for questions. If anybody has a question out there, we've got some microphones going around.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Christina Poindexter here with Headspace. Really interesting to hear you guys talk, so thanks for your insight here. I'm curious because there's a number of different assistants now out there, Google, Alexa, Bixby, a few others. So I wanted to hear from you guys what some of the benefits are of working with Bixby that might be unique.
Yeah, I can take a first shot at that. So what we've seen with Bixby is it gives you a lot more control over the experience. And so as we've been working with the capsules, we're able to get the data straight to Spotify rather than have it kind of be parsed through an intermediary. So that's been the biggest thing for us because the more kind of context you can have coming in and the more data coming in, the better you can handle the request back. So I think that's like one of the main differentiators. And yeah, overall just kind of being built, I guess, kind of developer first, as they've been talking about, and now open for everyone to develop with. So.
Yeah, I'd kind of echo that with Bixby's design is more of a modern computing paradigm as opposed to a lot of the other assistants, which frankly seem in an older sort of simplistic model of getting the right results for the users. But on top of that, the other thing that really attracts me about the Samsung ecosystem for this is I do think voice really benefits from a ubiquitous computing environment. So that still needs to kind of play out in the Samsung case. But I think Samsung has a better opportunity to hit me while I'm in my car and in my living room and in my office. And that's really exciting to me personally.
Yeah, for us, our experience with Vivo has been great. I told you guys before that all the team put a lot of effort to work very collaborative and understand our use cases and what the ticketing world means in these type of devices. You guys have been very collaborative and again, trying to understand our use cases, what we can do with the technology that is out there, very user-centric, and we are very happy to continue collaborating, releasing more and more features to improve our user experience.
Thanks. And I'll just add on to that. I mean, I think, Chad mentioned it, but we're committed to getting Bixby on all of our products. So over the next few years, you're going to see this new version of Bixby pop up on pretty much every device that Samsung sells. And that's a pretty interesting value proposition for developers. So in a few years, you might see Bixby on over 1 billion devices. And at that point, that's a legitimate channel for pretty much any business. And we're really excited about growing with everybody and getting it there. Okay, any other questions?
A lot of the other voice assistants kind of, I think, focus on like one-shot queries. With Bixby, it looks like there's a lot of, interrogative kind of interactions that can happen. Have you guys implemented more conversational interactions on your services, and how deep do they go? Yes. For example, like music service. Someone says, hey, play me jazz, but there's different subgenres of jazz. Like, are you able to then ask, well, do you want, smooth jazz? Do you want, and structured data really helps this, I think. So have you been able to kind of tap into that?
Yeah, so as of right now, most people aren't getting to that level of input. So I think like the users have to come to that place as well too, where they're doing that. And to be honest with you, most voice assistants haven't really opened up that channel to have conversations yet for the music space. So I think we're ready whenever the platforms support it to have this interaction. But it kind of takes the voice platform being able to allow multiple like kind of back and forth from the developer platform. So, thanks. But to be honest with you, I mean, you want to get it right on the first shot. You don't really want to have to ask clarifying questions. But I think giving users the option to lean in more is definitely something that I see coming, and it just is a matter of the voice assistants enabling that and teaching users that they can do that.
And I think you can do that today on the Bixby platform. I think it's we've talked to partners that want to have that kind of back and forth, and other partners that really want to try to, just deliver that best result right up front. So I think it's all about kind of user experience and what you want to show off as your, for your brand. Yeah. Any other questions? One back there.
With that said, do you guys see a lot of demand for commerce right now over voice, right? So maybe for Spotify, it's your Spotify subscription is coming up. Do you want to keep it on the same card, or tell me about Beyonce and let me buy tickets and going deeper into that?
Yeah, so as of right now, we haven't rolled out any of those features like that. I think I would expect that there will be demand for that as people are interacting with these more over time.
Yeah, in the case actually of Ticketmaster, we decided to go with a native transactional flow, so you can go to Bixby right now and say, what is going on this weekend, and we will give you not only the choice to select or the choice of or a list of events, live events near you, but also you can actually buy. And so we know that we are pretty early in the wave, but we want to be there. We want to be the first ones understanding and also going hand by hand with our users, with our fans, to discover together if that's the need that they will lean into. And we believe that at some point, users will be more comfortable. Not that they are not right now, because we have data that at least 20 to 30%, depending on the source that you see, that have a smart speaker or a smart AI smart app are actually buying something at least once a month. So we truly believe that we need to be there today to learn. To learn with providing them over time a better transactional experience.
Yeah, from a Yelp standpoint, we see a lot of desire from consumers to do bookings through Voice Assistant because it's such an easy thing to complete the transaction on. As far as true commerce, our mindset right now is we do a lot of food ordering, and we think through the experience of actually ordering dinner through a Voice Assistant could be hard. So some of the low-hanging fruit we see there, which I think is an interesting way to attack it, like what can you do well? We think we can do reorders of, deliver. I want delivery from such and such a restaurant that I got last week, and just hit repeat on that. The other one is I think in food ordering specifically, ordering pizza is a lot easier than ordering Thai food in most cases, because it's large pepperoni pizza. It's super easy. That's 90% of pizza orders. No, but it is kind of simple. So just biting off something that's common, like people eat a lot of pizza, it turns out, but easy to fulfill is kind of the approach we're thinking on that.
Awesome. I think we've got maybe time for one last question.
Yeah, what does Bixby think about like intelligent cross-merchandising? For example, I'm listening to Bonobo on Spotify, let's say through Bixby. Bonobo's playing at Regency Ballroom in San Francisco. And so you buy a ticket, and then, here are some great tables nearby. Sort of like stringing together as you increase the amount of inventory and the number of sources of content. How do you think about kind of stringing together experiences in a way that maybe saves the user a little bit of time?
So I guess I can take that one. So we are looking at ways to facilitate that in the platform, and I'm using that word facilitate because that's how we think about it. We want to make it possible for services to interact with one another, but we don't want to get in the way of it. So we want to let you guys do business development with other brands as you normally do, and we want to make it possible. We're not doing that right now on the platform, but you actually see that in the SDK today. There are certain capsules that we've built as Samsung and exposed that developers can use. So things like location or time or currency, those are shared. So you could imagine over time ways of exposing things. Maybe third-party developers could expose things. So I think that's coming. It's not there right now.
I think these are all great ideas. It's early days in the voice platform, so excited to see where this goes.
All right. Great. Well, I think we're out of time, but I just want to thank you guys all for coming. It was a great conversation. Thank you all.